Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the life of a merchant in the Ottoman Empire. Picture yourself stepping onto the bustling streets of Istanbul, with the sun just starting to rise, the air thick with the aroma of freshly baked bread, and the endless sounds of bartering echoing through the air. The streets are lined with stalls offering spices, textiles, and exotic goods from all corners of the empire. It's a world where the line between business and personal life is razor thin, and the merchant's trade is the lifeblood of the empire. Sounds intense, right? But you probably won't survive this journey without a little patience, because life as a merchant was no easy feat. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, post where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Ottoman Empire was vast, stretching across 3 continents, with its heart in Istanbul, where cultures from Europe, Asia, and Africa met. As you step into the life of a merchant, you're not just entering a market, you're entering a world full of stories, risks, and rewards. You may have heard the name Sultan the Magnificent, and while his reign marked the peak of the empire, tonight we're looking at the everyday man and woman who kept the wheels of this mighty empire turning. Your day begins early. It's still dark outside, and the soft call to prayer echoes through the streets. You're waking up in a modest home, maybe one room or two, with just enough light creeping through the cracks in the window shutters to make out the familiar layout. You're probably in a neighborhood where merchants live, their small homes clustered together, built around the convenience of the market. You're up before the rest of the city, and it's time to prepare for another long day of trade. It's not just about goods here. It's about relationships, honor, and survival. Historians still argue whether the concept of a workday even applied in the Ottoman world, as merchants often worked at odd hours, driven by the demands of their craft. There's no punching in at 9 a.m., but there's the understanding that you'll work until every deal is closed, every item bartered, and every customer satisfied. The bustling marketplace doesn't care about your sleep schedule. In fact, the trade doesn't stop. Even after the market closes, the merchants stay in touch with their contacts, trade partners, and buyers, always seeking new deals. You start your morning by washing your face, a ritual that's not just about hygiene but about preparing yourself for the spiritual and mental demands of the day. This is a moment of quiet reflection before stepping into the frenzy of trade. You're not just a merchant, you're a representative of your family, your reputation, and your religion. That first cup of Turkish coffee might be a welcome jolt, but it's also a reminder that the day ahead holds both opportunities and challenges. There's an old saying in the Ottoman Empire: a merchant's fortune is in his hands, but so is his downfall. The line between success and failure is thin, and every transaction could be your last or your best. Today, you're heading into the heart of the market, the famous Grand Bazaar. This place isn't just a market, it's a world of its own. It's where the empire's wealth converges, where you'll find everything from silk fabrics to spices, leather goods, and ceramics. The bazaar is full of smells and sounds, vendors calling out their wares, the sizzle of food on the grill, the occasional haggling that turns into laughter or frustration. You might think of it as a simple place to buy and sell goods, but it's a bustling microcosm of Ottoman life. The tradesmen, the artisans, and the common folk all play their part in this intricate ecosystem. You weave through the crowds, your eyes scanning for the right opportunities, someone looking for that rare spice or a piece of silk that will fetch a good price. The bazaar's narrow streets are lined with stalls covered in brightly colored fabrics, handmade jewelry, and an endless array of goods from far-flung places like Persia, Egypt, and the Balkans. Yet, in the midst of this commerce, there's a more personal aspect to the merchant's day, the relationships. You don't just do business with anyone. These merchants are tight-knit. There are connections to be made, favors to be exchanged, and alliances to form. As a merchant, you learn to navigate this web of social dynamics with a smile and a handshake. A contract isn't just about the goods exchanged. It's about trust, reputation, and sometimes a little bit of flattery. You can't underestimate the power of a good rapport. And there's the constant pressure of the Sultan's taxes. It's easy to forget the vast administrative system that runs the empire from behind the scenes. The Sultan's tax collectors are everywhere, ensuring that every merchant pays his due. No matter how successful you are in trade, you know the taxman will always get his share. The taxes are steep, and not paying them can lead to trouble, not just for you, but for your whole family. There's no escaping the reach of the empire's bureaucracy. There's one quirky tidbit. Historians still debate how often did the Sultan's taxes affect the merchant's livelihood. While some argue that the taxes were a necessary evil for keeping the empire strong, others suggest they may have contributed to the decline of small merchants as larger state-backed entities took over. Regardless of the truth, you can't help but feel the weight of those taxes every time you hand over a portion of your profits. That steady drain on your income is a reminder that in the Ottoman Empire, no one truly owns their wealthy, always shared with the state. The day progresses, and you continue through the market, dealing with customers, bartering for the best price, and handling any disputes that arise. As a merchant, you've learned to keep your emotions in check. Whether you're dealing with a complaining buyer or a supplier who's a little too eager to inflate prices, you maintain your composure. After all, the most successful merchants are those who can keep a cool head in the midst of chaos. By the time the sun starts to set, you're exhausted. But this isn't the end of your day. The grand bazaar may close for the evening, but the work doesn't stop. You have your accounts to settle, your shipments to organize, and perhaps most importantly, you need to check in with your fellow merchants, traders, and suppliers. There's no such thing as a quiet night when you're living the merchant life in the Ottoman Empire. And as you lay down to rest, with the sounds of the city still faintly buzzing in the background, you reflect on the day's events. There's always something more to achieve, another deal to close, another connection to make. The Ottoman Empire may be vast, but for you, the merchant, it's a world that's as big as your ambition. You wake up early, just before dawn. The familiar sound of the muezzin's call to prayer drifts through the air, reverberating from the nearby minarets. It's almost like the start of a new world each morning, rhythm that binds you to your community, to the empire, and to your purpose as a merchant. You rise from your modest bed, stretching your arms and shaking off the remnants of sleep. Your mind, however, is already racing. The day ahead will be another of hard work, deal-making, and perhaps, if luck favors you, another step towards securing your legacy in this thriving empire. As you rub your eyes and glance at the faint glow of sunlight creeping through the window, you remember, today is going to be another long day in the marketplace, navigating through the crowded streets and tight alleys of Istanbul. But you are used to it. You've been waking up early for years, watching the city slowly stir to life as merchants like you start to prepare for another day of trade. The first order of business is always the same. Freshen up, drink some water, and have a small meal to fuel your body. This could be something as simple as a piece of bread with olives and cheese, or a bowl of thick yogurt. Depending on your mood, historians still debate whether the average Ottoman merchant had a specific breakfast routine, or whether meals were more fluid, eaten at varying times depending on the day's workload. There's no concrete evidence of a singular breakfast tradition. But one thing is clear: the sustenance you need is often simple and direct. Your focus is on energy and practicality, not indulgence. You're not here to waste time or money on anything that doesn't help you get through the day. While the other citizens of Istanbul are still wrapped in sleep, you're already preparing to head out. The streets outside your door are just beginning to wake up, and you can hear the familiar sounds of people setting up their stalls, animals being led to market, and the occasional shout of a street vendor peddling his goods. But for you, the most important task is ensuring that your goods are ready for sale. Whether it's the fine silk you've imported from Persia, the fragrant spices from Egypt, or the quality pottery you've secured from Anatolia, your products are your livelihood. The thought of your inventory being unprepared for the day's trade makes you uneasy, and so you double-check everything before leaving your home. Your first stop is likely to be your local supplier or your warehouse, where you keep the bulk of your goods. This space, though humble, serves as the hub of your business operations. It's not glamorous by any means. The shelves are lined with crates and bundles wrapped in fabric, and the air is thick with the smell of spices, oils, and fresh produced, depending on what goods you're dealing in at the time. You inspect each item, making sure it's in prime condition for sale. As you do, you feel a sense of pride. These goods aren't just commodities. They are part of the intricate fabric of a vast empire that spans from the heart of Europe to the edges of Africa and Asia. Every item has a story, and every trade is a small piece of a much larger picture. As the sun rises higher, you make your way to the Grand Bazaar. It's not just a place to sell goods. It's a venue where relationships are cultivated, deals are brokered, and empires are built. The Grand Bazaar is more than just a marketplace. It's a symbol of the Ottoman Empire's wealth and power. A place where the exchange of goods is intertwined with the exchange of ideas, cultures, and aspirations. Merchants from all over the empire and beyond gather here to do business. You know the faces of your fellow traders. You know their mannerisms, their negotiating tactics, and, most importantly, their integrity. In this world, trust is the most valuable currency, and if you lose it, you risk losing everything. Walking through the narrow corridors of the bazaar, you're surrounded by vendors calling out to you, hoping to lure you into their stalls with promises of the best deals. But you know better than to be swayed by flashy salesmanship. You've built your reputation through years of hard work, and you'll only make a deal if the price is right. Negotiation is an art, and you've perfected it over time. It's about more than just haggling over prices. It's about understanding the value of what you're selling and what you're buying. You know the best prices for your goods and won't settle for anything less. But as you weave through the market, you also notice something unusual today. There's a sense of unease in the air. Some of the other merchants look tense. Their voices a little sharper than usual. You overhear a conversation about new taxes, levies being imposed by the Sultan's officials. The government is demanding more from the traders, and, as always, the burden of these taxes will fall on you. The Sultan's demands are never easy to predict. While some historians argue that the taxes were essential for maintaining the empire's vast infrastructure, others believe they stifled small merchants and prevented them from growing their businesses. Regardless of your personal opinions, one thing is clear: the Sultan's taxes are a reality. You can't avoid the question of how taxes affected the merchant class in the Ottoman Empire is still a subject of scholarly debate. Some historians suggest that the empire's tax system was a well-oiled machine that ensured fairness and stability. Others argue that it disproportionately affected the lower and middle classes, burdening them with excessive fees. One thing is certain: as a merchant, you are always walking a fine line between prosperity and peril. If you don't pay your taxes on time or fail to comply with the government's rules, you risk losing your livelihood, or worse, being arrested or thrown into prison. Still, your primary concern today is not taxes, but business. After negotiating with a supplier for a shipment of fine silk, you strike a deal that feels fair, but you know better than to relax just yet. There's always someone looking to undercut you, always a new challenge around the corner. And so, after a few more transactions, you take a moment to pause and reflect. Your work today has been successful, but you're not done yet. As the sun begins to set, you prepare to head home, knowing that tomorrow will bring another day of trade, another set of challenges, and another opportunity to prove your worth. It's a tiring life, no doubt. But as a merchant in the Ottoman Empire, this is your world. You are part of a vast, intricate network that stretches across continents, bound together by the common thread of trade. You may not be a ruler or a noble, but in your own way, you are just as essential to the empire's success as anyone else. The marketplace may be chaotic, but it's where your destiny lies. The morning air is cool and crisp as you step out onto the street once more. The first light of dawn is stretching across the horizon, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. The sounds of the city are familiar now, almost comforting. Occasional call to prayer from the mosque, the rustling of carts being pushed along the narrow streets, and the chatter of other merchants as they make their way to their stalls. There's a calm before the storm that is the day's trade. The day is just beginning, and while the sun climbs higher, so does the intensity of the market. Before you head toward your usual trade routes, you make a stop at your supplier's shop, where the bulk of your goods are stored. Today, you're preparing for a shipment of valuable silk, a product you've spent weeks negotiating for, and you need to ensure everything is in perfect condition. The soft texture of the fabric is a reminder of the empire's vast luxury product from the East, now available to the elite and wealthy in the heart of the empire. The sight of the silks lying in neat bundles on shelves is almost surreal. These aren't just mere fabrics. They are symbols of luxury and status, products that command the highest prices. You check each bundle meticulously, running your fingers over the delicate material, making sure there are no snags or imperfections. The last thing you want is to deliver subpar goods to your buyers, who expect nothing less than perfection. As you prepare to load your goods onto a cart, you're interrupted by a familiar facer, fellow merchant from a nearby stall. He's a supplier of spices, particularly saffron, which you know has been in high demand lately. He greets you with a smile, but there's something more urgent in his eyes. "Something's not right," he mutters, lowering his voice so no one overhears. There's been word of a crackdown. The Sultan's men are inspecting every merchant today. Your heart sinks. Inspections from the Sultan's men are never good news. It could mean a sudden tax increase, or worse, they might be cracking down on corruption. And any slight infraction could mean your goods get confiscated or your shop shut down. You've heard of merchants who've been swept up in these raids. Their goods taken with no explanation and their livelihoods destroyed in a single day. Do you think it's true, you ask, trying to keep your voice steady? Hard to say, he responds. But I'd keep your head down today. Be careful with your transactions. We don't want any trouble. The weight of his words lingers with you as you continue to load your goods. You can't help but feel a sense of unease creeping in, the kind of feeling that always arises when you know you're just one wrong move away from disaster. But you've learned to keep such thoughts at bay. Worrying about what might happen won't help you today. Instead, you focus on the task at hand, making sure your goods are ready for the bazaar. As you head toward the Grand Bazaar, you can't help but think about the delicate balance you've struck over the years. Being a merchant in the Ottoman Empire is not just about the products you sell. It's about relationships, reputation, and survival. The market is a web of connections, alliances, and deals made in the shadows. Every transaction you make is more than just an exchange of goods. It's a statement of trust, a demonstration of your integrity, and a chance to grow your influence. Once you reach the bazaar, the familiar sights and sounds envelop you. The vibrant colors of textiles, the pungent aromas of spices, and the constant chatter of traders and customers create a sensory overload. You navigate through the maze of stalls, knowing exactly where to go and who to speak to. But there's an underlying tension in the air today. As you move through the market, you notice the guards, more of them than usual, and their eyes scanning the crowd, looking for any signs of trouble. As a merchant, you've learned to read the signs. You can tell when something is amiss, and today, it's hard to shake the feeling that the inspectors are closer than ever. You adjust your pace, trying to blend into the crowd, keeping your goods close and your transactions discreet. You finally reach your stall and begin setting up, but the tension lingers. The silence between you and your customers is heavier than usual, and you can sense that everyone is on edge. You wonder if the Sultan's men are indeed nearby, watching every move, waiting for someone to slip up. The hours drag on, and as the day wears on, you become more and more aware of the looming presence of authority. In the middle of the bustling bazaar, you overhear a conversation that confirms your worst fears. The Sultan's men are indeed conducting inspections, targeting merchants who seem suspicious or have questionable dealings. Your heart races as you wonder if you're next. You've done nothing wrong, of course. You've always prided yourself on honesty and integrity, keeping your business above board. But in times like these, it's hard not to feel like everyone is a potential target. The fear of being caught in a crackdown hangs over you, threatening to undo everything you've worked for. Despite the tension, you push forward, focusing on making sales and maintaining your relationships with buyers. You haggle, as you always do, ensuring that both you and your customers feel like they've walked away with a fair deal. You know that your reputation is built on these transactions, on the trust you've earned over the years. It's the one thing that can protect you in times like this, when everything else feels uncertain. As the sun begins to set, you finally close your stall for the day. The long hours have left you drained, both physically and mentally. You pack up your goods, double-checking to ensure everything is in order. There's a weight in your chest, a sense of relief mixed with the lingering fear of what tomorrow might bring. Will the inspectors return? Will they find something that could ruin your reputation and business? It's a heavy burden to carry, and yet, it's one you've learned to bear when you finally return home. The familiar quiet of your small dwelling offers a sense of solace. The day's chaos fades into the background as you settle in for the night. But as you lay your head on the pillow, you can't help but think about the future, the uncertainty of tomorrow, the challenges of navigating an empire as vast and complex as the Ottoman one. But for now, the only thing that matters is rest. You close your eyes and let the sounds of the city fade into the distance, knowing that tomorrow will bring new challenges, new opportunities. Asterisk. The first hint of dawn creeps in through the window, and the same familiar sounds of the city begin to stir once more. You open your eyes, stretching, feeling the warmth of the sun beginning to seep into the room. The day ahead is another challenge. Yesterday was a reminder of the precariousness of life as a merchant in the Ottoman Empire. The feeling of unease still lingers, but you know you must push it aside. If you dwell too long on the uncertainties of the future, you'll lose the present. Today is another opportunity to navigate the complex web of trade, and you can't afford to let fear dominate your thoughts. You get out of bed, your feet touching the cold stone floor. The chill of the morning air is bracing, but it won't last long. The bustling streets of Istanbul will soon heat up as the city comes alive. The streets, already filled with activity, will soon be crowded with merchants, buyers, and the usual bustle that makes this city one of the most important trading hubs in the world. Istanbul, the city where East meets West, is more than just a place. It's the lifeblood of the Ottoman Empire. And the marketplace is where it all happens. And for you, it's where your future unfolds. As you prepare for the day, there's a certain rhythm to your routine. You wash your face, drink some water, and eat a light breakfast to fuel your body for the demanding hours ahead. Your mind is focused as you begin to plan for the day. You know the importance of being prepared. A merchant must always be ready for the unexpected, whether it's a sudden change in the market's demands, the threat of government inspectors, or the whims of a wealthy buyer. The ability to adapt quickly is what separates successful traders from those who fall by the wayside. You pull on your clothes, a simple but practical tunic suited to the work ahead, and grab your coin pouch. Today, you're ready to tackle the day, and you'll do so with the calm confidence that comes from years of experience. But even with years of practice, there's always something new to learn, something unexpected to face. As you make your way toward the Grand Bazaar, you notice that the city is already awake, the streets teeming with life. You pass through the busy alleys, the air filled with the sounds of horses, hooves, and the chatter of merchants. The market is already bustling, but there's a certain tension in the air that you can't ignore. You've noticed the increased presence of soldiers lately, and you're not the only one who has caught wind of it. The word around the bazaar is that the Sultan's men are coming down hard on corruption, making sure that every merchant complies with the ever-evolving rules and regulations. Historically, these inspections are a double-edged sword. On the one hand, they are meant to ensure fairness in trade, preventing monopolies and illegal practices that could harm the empire's economy. On the other hand, they often serve as a reminder of the power the Sultan holds over merchants like you. It's a constant balancing act between staying within the law and pushing the limits of what's profitable. You've heard whispers that some merchants are finding ways to skirt the rules, paying off the right people or hiding certain transactions to avoid the attention of the authorities. But you've always avoided such shortcuts. You've built your business on hard work and honesty. You might not be the wealthiest merchant in the bazaar, but you sleep easy at night knowing that your reputation is built on trust. And that's something money can't buy. The Grand Bazaar is a world unto itself. It's not just a marketplace, it's a microcosm of Ottoman society. The wealthy and the poor, the powerful and the humble, all mingle together in this chaotic, vibrant space. The stalls are filled with goods from every corner of the empire, from silk and spices to ceramics, textiles, and leather goods. The bazaar is a reflection of the empire's vast reach, where traders from all over the world come to do business. As you set up your store for the day, you notice the usual mix of customers, noblemen, soldiers, and common folk. But there's something different today. The atmosphere feels heavier, more cautious. The usual banter between buyers and sellers has been replaced by hurried whispers and quiet negotiations. Even the children playing in the corners seem a bit more subdued. You focus on your work, trying to block out the growing sense of unease. But even as you engage with customers, you can't shake the feeling that something is about to change. The Sultan's men are out in full force today, moving through the bazaar with stern expressions. You overhear a conversation between two fellow merchants, and the words inspection and bribe are mentioned in hushed tones. You feel a knot form in your stomach. You've never been one to engage in underhanded dealings, but the pressure to stay afloat in this ever-changing marketplace is palpable. The fear of being caught in the crackdown hangs over you, but you know you can't let it stop you from doing business. As the day wears on, you continue to interact with your customers. There's always an art to the negotiation. You've learned to read people over the years, to understand when they're truly interested in a product and when they're just browsing. You know the value of the goods you're selling, and you make sure that your prices reflect that value. But the real skill lies in creating a connection with your customers. You don't just want them to buy, you want them to trust you. And when that trust is established, business becomes more than just transactions. It becomes a partnership. Historians have long debated the role of merchants in Ottoman society. While they were often seen as essential to the empire's economy, they were also viewed with suspicion by some in the higher echelons of power. Merchants had the ability to accumulate great wealth, and in a society where wealth was tied to power, that made them both respected and feared. In many ways, you were both a product and a participant in this system. You rely on the empire for protection and trade routes, but you also have to navigate the complex web of politics and economics that comes with living in such a powerful and interconnected society. As the sun sets and the bazaar begins to quiet down, you start to pack up your stall. The tension of the day weighs on you, but there's also a sense of accomplishment. Despite the uncertainty, you've made deals, strengthened relationships, and ensured that your business continues to thrive. As you leave the market, your mind drifts back to the earlier conversation you overheard about inspections. Tomorrow may be another day of uncertainty, but for now, you've done your part. Once home, the familiar quiet of your dwelling offers some respite. You take a deep breath, letting the stress of the day melt away. But even as you relax, you know that tomorrow will bring its own set of challenges. The Sultan's men will likely be back, and you'll have to stay sharp. But that's the life of a merchant in the Ottoman Empire, ever-changing, always uncertain, and filled with opportunities and risks. The morning breaks with the usual burst of sound and energy from the streets of Istanbul. The soft clamour of merchants setting up, the rhythmic tapping of horses' hooves on cobblestones, and the distant call of the muezzin from the nearest mosque fill the air, signalling that the city is once again waking up. The sun, still low in the sky, casts a golden glow over the city, illuminating the maze of streets and alleyways that make up the heart of the Ottoman Empire's commercial center. As you rise from bed, the same thoughts begin to swirl in your mind. The sense of uncertainty that has plagued you over the past few days is still there, lingering in the back of your mind. The Sultan's men have been more active in the bazaar, making the already tense atmosphere feel even more oppressive. You've heard the rumors of others getting caught up in the inspections, their goods seized, and their livelihoods put on the line. It's hard not to feel like a small cog in a vast, unpredictable machine when you're caught in the web of imperial bureaucracy, but you've been in the game long enough to know that worry doesn't pay the bills. Worry doesn't fill the stalls with customers, and it doesn't put food on the table. What matters today, as always, is moving forward. The intricacies of the marketplace, bartering for the best deals, and ensuring that your reputation remains intact. You can't control the empire's laws or the whims of the Sultan's men, but you can control how you operate within that framework. You've survived this long by being sharp, by being adaptable, and by never letting the fear of uncertainty guide your actions. As you step out of your modest home, the cool morning air greets you, refreshing your senses. The narrow streets of the neighborhood are already bustling with activity. Other merchants are packing up their goods, readying their carts, and heading toward the market. It's a familiar sight, an intricate dance of commerce, where everyone plays their part. But today, there's a sense of heightened awareness. There's a silent understanding that the government's increased scrutiny could make the day's work more difficult. You make your way to the warehouse where you keep your stock. It's a short walk from your home, tucked away in a quieter part of the city. The narrow alleys are filled with the scent of fresh bread and spices, the unmistakable smells of Istanbul. You reach the warehouse, and as you push open the heavy wooden door, you're met with the familiar sight of your goods stacked high. The silks, spices, pottery, and other items you've procured are all neatly organized, ready for sale. The preparation process is always methodical. You carefully check each item, inspecting it for any imperfections. Merchants in the Ottoman Empire are known for their attention to detail. Whether you're dealing in textiles or spices, the quality of your products speaks volumes about your reputation. If your goods aren't up to par, your customers won't return. That's the reality of trade in the empire. There's no room for sloppiness. Everything must be pristine. Today, however, there's an added layer of concern. The recent rumors about inspections still weigh heavily on your mind. You wonder if today will be the day the Sultan's men decide to make an example of a few unlucky merchants. The tension is palpable, and you can almost feel the weight of it pressing down on the market, making every transaction feel more dangerous. But you push those thoughts aside. You've learned to focus on the task at hand, to tune out the noise, and to do your job with precision. The goods are ready, the deals are waiting, and it's time to move. The market won't wait for anyone, and neither will your customers. You load the cart with your goods and head toward the Grand Bazaar. The walk through the city is familiar, but today feels different. The streets are a little more crowded, the air a little more charged with energy. You pass by other merchants, their carts filled with everything from fruits and vegetables to fine jewelry and ornate carpets. It's a symphony of commerce, with everyone vying for the attention of potential buyers. When you reach the Grand Bazaar, it's already a hive of activity. The wide corridors are filled with merchants haggling with buyers, the clang of metal on metal from blacksmiths, and the sharp scent of spices in the air. The bazaar is a place where anything can be found, a microcosm of the empire itself, where cultures, goods, and ideas intersect. As you begin to set up your stall, you can't help but notice the increased presence of guards. There's an unease in the air, something that wasn't there just a few days ago. The soldiers are walking through the market in pairs, their eyes scanning every transaction, every movement. They don't say much, but their presence is a silent reminder that the empire's power is always watching, always ready to act. You begin to interact with your customers, trying to keep your focus on the trade. The deals come in slowly at first, but soon enough, you find yourself engaging in the familiar back and forth of haggling. A nobleman eyes your fine silks, admiring the craftsmanship and intricate designs. You negotiate a fair price, one that leaves both of you satisfied. Another customer stops by, looking for the rare spices you've managed to procure from Egypt. The transaction goes smoothly, and before long, you've made a few solid deals. But then, the inevitable happens. You see them, the Sultan's men, moving through the bazaar, their sharp eyes trained on the merchants. One of them stops by your stall, his expression unreadable. You hold your breath, unsure of what to expect. The man looks over your goods, inspecting the quality with a practiced eye. After what feels like an eternity, he nods and moves on. You exhale, the tension releasing from your body, but the unease remains. You were lucky today, but how many others in the bazaar weren't? The rest of the day passes in a blur of transactions and cautious glances. The fear of inspection never fully leaves you, but you continue to work, doing what you do best, trading, negotiating, and keeping your reputation intact. By the time the sun begins to set, the bazaar is starting to quiet down. The stalls are closing, and merchants are packing up their goods, ready to head home. As you make your way back to your dwelling, the day's weight settles on your shoulders. The fear of government intervention, the constant threat of inspections, the uncertainty of the futurette all adds up. But it's not just the fear of the Sultan's men that keeps you up at night. It's the realization that, in this world, survival isn't guaranteed. A single misstep could cost you everything you've worked for. But for now, you push those thoughts aside. You've made it through another day. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own risks, but you know, you'll be ready. You always are. As you close the door behind you, the familiar quiet of your home offers a sense of relief. You've done what you came to do. The market is always uncertain, but as long as you remain vigilant, as long as you stay true to your craft, you know you'll continue to thrive. You lay down to rest, your mind still running through the events of the day. But you know that tomorrow will be another day, a day filled with opportunities, risks, and the promise of the empire's endless commerce. The light of dawn seeps through the narrow window of your home, casting soft shadows on the walls. The air is still cool, a refreshing reminder that even though the city of Istanbul never truly sleeps, the quiet moments before the full burst of the day are always fleeting. You stir from your bed, feeling the weight of yesterday's tension on your shoulders. But you know that today is a new day, with new opportunities to seize and, of course, new risks to face. The unpredictability of life as a merchant in the Ottoman Empire is always present, lurking just beyond the horizon. But it's something you've learned to navigate over the years. Stretching your arms and taking a deep breath, you begin your morning routine. There's a slight unease today, though. The market, as you've heard from other traders, is becoming more difficult to navigate. The Sultan's men have been increasingly active, inspecting goods, questioning merchants, and making it harder for honest traders to do their work. The feeling of being watched is becoming more and more intense, and the fear of government intervention looms over you like a shadow. Still, you remind yourself of the facts. You've been a part of this intricate web of trade for years, and though the politics of the empire may shift, you know the marketplace itself is constant. It's a place of opportunity, where a skilled merchant like you can make a living, if not a fortune. But you've also learned to take things one step at a time, never too far ahead, never too far behind. With your typical routine, washing your face with cool water, taking a small breakfast of bread and olives, and preparing your goods for the day you feel the familiar rhythm settle into your bones. The grand, bustling marketplace of Istanbul awaits, with its noise and chaos, but it is also where your livelihood lies. You cannot escape it, nor would you want to. This is the life you have chosen, and its challenges are as much a part of you as its rewards. Once you're ready, you step out into the streets of the city, immediately greeted by the symphony of Istanbul, the shouts of street vendors, the chatter of pedestrians, the clanging of metal from nearby workshops, and the constant ebb and flow of horse-drawn carts, carrying goods to and from the market. The city is alive, vibrant with energy, and as you make your way to the warehouse where your goods are stored, you're reminded once more of the importance of your role within it all. The warehouse, though small, is your sanctuary. Here, in the stillness, your products, silks, spices, leather goods, and pottery are safely stored, waiting for the day when they will be exchanged for coin. The act of inspecting each item, of checking the quality of your goods before they are sent out into the chaos of the market, is almost ritualistic. It's your way of making sure everything is in order, of ensuring that the reputation you've worked so hard to build isn't damaged by a single mistake. As you move through the warehouse, the faint smell of spices and oils fills the air. You handle each item with care, inspecting each bundle of silk or jar of spices to ensure they meet your standards. It's tedious work, but you know it's worth it. Merchants are judged by the quality of their goods, and a single misstep could ruin your reputation. After all, the marketplace is full of competitors, many of whom would be happy to take advantage of any slip-dash up when your cart is loaded and ready. You set off toward the Grand Bazaar. The path is familiar, but today there's an added sense of tension in the air. You notice more soldiers stationed along the way, their eyes scanning the crowds as they move through the streets. You've seen them before, of course, but today they seem more vigilant, more purposeful. You wonder if today is the day when things will change for you, when the Sultan's men will turn their eyes toward your stall. But you push those thoughts aside. Worry does nothing but slow you down. You've learned that over the years. What matters now is getting to the market, setting up your stall, and making the deals that will keep your business alive. Everything else, whether the inspectors come today or tomorrow, is beyond your control. When you arrive at the Grand Bazaar, you're met with the usual cacophony of sounds. The marketplace is as busy as ever, and merchants are haggling over prices, showing off their wares and calling out to passers-by. The rich colors of textiles, the pungent smells of spices, and the constant chatter of voices make the atmosphere almost dizzying. But this is where you thrive. This is where you do your best work. You set up your stall, arranging your goods neatly and making sure everything is in its place. As you do, you notice something unusual. There are more guards today than usual. Their presence is hard to ignore. as they move through the market, scanning the merchants and their goods with a level of scrutiny that you've never seen before. You wonder if today will be the day the inspectors arrive at your stall, but you don't allow yourself to dwell on the thought. Instead, you focus on your customers. The first to approach your stall is a nobleman, his richly embroidered robes, indicating his high status. He's here for the fine silks. You've been selling silks that have been highly sought after due to their quality and rarity. You engage with him, discussing the unique qualities of your fabric, the intricate designs, and the origins of the silk. The conversation flows easily, as it always does with buyers of this caliber. They appreciate your expertise, your knowledge of the products, and most importantly, your honesty. After some negotiation, the nobleman agrees to your price, and a deal is made. It's a good sale, one that will keep your business afloat for another day. But the sense of unease never quite leaves you. As you continue to deal with other customers, your eyes constantly scan the crowd, looking for any signs of trouble. You notice more and more merchants speaking in hushed tones, exchanging whispers about the latest developments. There are rumors. You hear that the Sultan's men are cracking down on merchants who are suspected of cheating the system, whether through bribery, tax evasion, or other illicit activities. The bazaar is full of such rumors, but you can't help but feel that there might be some truth to them today. And then, just as you begin to think you've made it through the worst of the day, one of the inspectors approaches your stall. He's a tall man, his face stern, and his uniform indicates that he's no ordinary soldier. He's here on official business, and he's here to inspect your goods. You hold your breath as he goes over your products, his eyes scanning every item with a critical eye. You wonder if today is the day you'll be caught in the crackdown, if your goods will be confiscated, and if your business will be ruined. But after what seems like an eternity, the inspector nods, marks your goods with a seal, and moves on. You exhale, relief flooding through you, but the tension doesn't fully fade. Tomorrow is another day, and the risk is always there. But for now, you've made it through, and you can rest easy knowing that you've done your part. You pack up your stall as the sun begins to set, your mind still racing, but also filled with a quiet sense of accomplishment. The day is over, and tomorrow will bring new challenges, but you'll be ready. As the sun rises the next morning, the city of Istanbul seems to hum with a familiar rhythm. But today feels a little different. The air is thick with tension, and the streets that are usually filled with vibrant energy now carry an undercurrent of caution. The call to prayer resonates through the city, its familiar tones echoing off the stone buildings. But today the usual calm it brings is overshadowed by the news of another inspection. The Sultan's men have been growing more active, moving through the marketplace like hawks, their eyes scanning every stall, every transaction, searching for any sign of dishonesty, corruption, or even the smallest infraction. You can't escape. The growing sense of unease. Merchants talk in hushed voices as they gather in the corners of the market, exchanging rumors of what might happen next. Some say the Sultan is planning a larger crackdown, perhaps to protect the empire's coffers, or to reduce corruption in the trade routes. Others whisper that the inspection is just a show, a way to keep the masses in line while they continue to turn a blind eye to the more influential traders who are pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But all these rumors do little to ease your nerves. You've seen what happens when the Sultan's men make an example of someone, goods confiscated, families ruined, businesses destroyed in an instant. The thought of losing everything you've worked for is enough to make you second-guess every decision. But today, as always, there's work to be done. You get out of bed and move through your morning routine with practiced ease. Your mind is already on the day ahead, what goods to sell, which buyers might come through, and how to navigate the increasingly dangerous waters of the market. It's a delicate balance of maintaining relationships, avoiding suspicion, and ensuring that you remain in good standing with both your customers and the government. After washing your face and having a quick breakfast, you begin preparing your goods for the day. The silks are neatly folded, the spices carefully wrapped, and the leather goods are polished and ready for sale. You check everything twice, making sure nothing is missing, nothing is out of place. Your stall must be flawless. After all, your reputation is on the line, and in a market as competitive as the Grand Bazaar, a single mistake could cost you not only a sale, but your entire livelihood. You step outside, and the early morning light feels colder today. The streets of Istanbul seem quieter than usual, and there's an almost palpable sense of anticipation in the air. As you walk through the winding streets toward the market, you notice the increased presence of soldiers. They are positioned at every corner, their eyes sharp, scanning the crowds, looking for any signs of trouble. You can't help but wonder, are they here to protect the market, or are they watching you and your fellow merchants more closely today? The walk to the bazaar is short, but it feels longer than usual. You're not the only one walking with purpose, and as you move through the narrow alleys toward the market, you can't help but notice the subtle changes in the faces around you. There's a sense of wariness in the air, a quiet realization that the rules are shifting, and you can't afford to make a single wrong move. When you finally reach the Grand Bazaar, you notice that there's something different about the atmosphere. Today, the usual cacophony of voices, the laughter and shouting of merchants, the sounds of deals being struck, all of it feels muted, like the marketplace is holding its breath. The guards are everywhere, moving through the crowds like shadows, their presence impossible to ignore. There's no escaping the fact that the Sultan's men are watching, and the idea of making a mistake today seems more dangerous than ever. You set up your stall, arranging your goods with the care you always do. The silks, the spices, and the pottery are lined up perfectly, each item carefully placed where it will catch the eye of potential buyers. You've done everything you can to ensure that your stall looks inviting, professional, and trustworthy. But even as you do, you can't shake the feeling that your every move is being observed. Soon enough, buyers begin to trickle in, their footsteps echoing through the bazaar's narrow aisles. You greet each one with a smile, always polite, always friendly, but today there's a certain urgency in your demeanor. You know that the Sultan's men are watching, and you can't afford to act out of line. Every transaction feels like it's being scrutinized by someone, even though you've done nothing wrong. The constant presence of authority in the market is enough to make even the most seasoned merchant uneasy. As the day progresses, you make a few sales. The noblemen are particularly interested in your fine silks, and the traders from Persia eye your spices, making sure to inspect each jar with meticulous care. You haggle, as you always do, ensuring that both sides leave satisfied. But the whole time, there's a weight on your chest. The presence of the guards is unshakable, and every customer seems more like a potential threat than a source of profit at midday. You take a break, stepping away from your stall to grab a quick bite to eat. As you sit in a small alley behind the market, you overhear two merchants talking. They speak in hushed tones, their voices barely rising above the sounds of the busy streets. One of them is explaining how the Sultan's men have started inspecting traders more closely, checking not only the quality of goods, but also their books and taxes. The other merchant nods knowingly, clearly worried. It's only a matter of time, he says. If we don't pay our dues, or worse, if we're found guilty of evading taxes, they'll take everything. No questions asked. The conversation stirs. Something inside you. The reality of the situation is sinking in. These aren't just rumors anymore. The inspections are real, and they're becoming more frequent. You can't ignore the danger that looms over you, but you also can't let it stop you. You've survived this long by staying focused, by building your reputation, and by maintaining your integrity. That's all you can do now. You can't control the Sultan's men, but you can control how you do business. When you return to your stall, the mood has shifted. The guards are moving through the market in greater numbers, stopping at more and more stalls. They ask questions, inspect goods, and make notes in their books. It's clear that they're looking for something or someone. You know that as long as you stay above board, you should be safe, but you can't help but feel the pressure building by. Late afternoon, the tension is palpable. The usual excitement of the market is gone, replaced by an air of caution and unease. The inspectors have moved on to other stalls, but the damage is done. You can see it in the eyes of the other merchants. They know that the government's gaze is now fixed firmly on them. The fear of being caught in the crackdown is more real than ever. As the sun sets and the market begins to empty, you take a moment to reflect. Today was difficult, full of tension and uncertainty, but you made it through. You made sales, you kept your goods in good standing, and you kept your reputation intact. But the future remains uncertain. The Sultan's men will return. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, and the only thing you can do now is face them head on, just as you always have. As you pack up your stall and prepare to head home, the feeling of relief is bittersweet. You've survived another day in the Empire's marketplace, but the shadows of uncertainty still hang over you. In the world of trade, where fortunes can change in the blink of an eye, the only thing that's certain is that nothing is ever truly secure. The cool morning breeze hits you as you step outside, feeling the soft warmth of the early sun on your face. It's the start of another day in Istanbul, but the air feels a little different today, heavier somehow, as if the city itself is bracing for something. The sounds of the marketplace are already beginning to stir in the distance, but today the streets are quieter, the usual morning hustle and bustle muted. You know that this quiet is temporary. Soon, the familiar clamor of the Grand Bazaar will fill the air, and the rhythm of life in the Ottoman Empire will resume its usual pace. But for now, a stillness lingers in the air, an unease you can't shake off as you make your way toward the warehouse. Your thoughts drift back to the events of the past few days. The increased presence of the Sultan's men in the market, the rumors of a larger crackdown, the constant tension, it's all weighing on you. You can feel the pressure mounting, and you wonder how long you can continue to navigate these uncertain waters before something snaps. But there's no time for reflection now. You've learned over the years that in the world of trade, survival is a matter of forward momentum. So, you push your worries aside and focus on the task at hand. The walk to your warehouse is short, but today it feels longer. Each step seems to echo louder than the last, and you can't help but notice the increased patrols on the streets. The soldiers are everywhere now, in the corners, in the alleyways, and even standing near the entrances to the market. You can feel their eyes on you, assessing, watching for any sign of trouble. It's as though the entire city is under surveillance. And you're no exception. You finally reach your warehouse, the familiar wooden door creaking open as you step inside. The scent of spices and leather fills the air. The same comforting smell that has greeted you every morning for as long as you can remember. The space is cluttered but organized, and the sight of your goods, neatly stacked and ready for sale, is a small comfort in the midst of the growing tension. You take a moment to inspect everything, making sure that everything is in order before heading out to the bazaar. Once your cart is loaded and ready to go, you set off toward the grand bazaar. The walk feels heavier today, each step more deliberate, as if you're stepping into a storm that you can't avoid. The streets are still quiet, but the presence of soldiers on every corner is undeniable. They move with purpose, scanning the crowds, checking each merchant with a steely gaze. You've seen them before, of course, but today it feels different. There's something about the way they carry themselves today that makes you feel as though something is about to happen. As you approach the bazaar, the usual rush of merchants and customers fills the air, but there's something off about it. The energy seems subdued, as though everyone knows that today could be the day things change. You set up your stall, arranging your goods carefully, as you always do. The silks, the spices, the pottery, all of it needs to be perfect. But the constant presence of the guards looms over everything. Their eyes scan the marketplace, watching, waiting. You feel like a target, exposed and vulnerable in the center of it all. By mid-morning, you've made a few sales, but the usual buzz of the bazaar is absent. The haggling, the friendly banter between merchants and customers, it all feels forced, as though everyone is aware of the elephant in the room, but no one dares to speak of it. The soldiers continue to move through the market, stopping at various stalls, inspecting goods, questioning merchants, and making their presence felt. It's clear that today is different. The Sultan's men are taking no chances, making sure that no one is breaking the rules. No one is avoiding taxes. No one is cheating the system. As you stand behind your stall, you can't help but notice the increasing tension among your fellow merchants. Some are whispering to one another, exchanging glances, their eyes darting nervously toward the guards. Others are trying to act as if nothing is wrong, engaging with customers and carrying on with business as usual. But beneath the surface, you can feel the fear of being singled out, of having your goods confiscated, of losing everything in an instant. It doesn't take long before the Sultan's men arrive at your stall. You feel your heart skip a beat as one of them approaches, his face stern, his uniform pristine. He stops in front of your goods, his gaze sweeping over your silks and spices. You try to keep your composure, but it's difficult. His presence alone is enough to make you feel like you're guilty of something, even though you know you've done nothing wrong. "Open your books," the inspector says coldly, his voice carrying an authority that makes your blood run cold. You hesitate for a moment, then nod and reach for the ledger that contains your records. You've always kept your books in order, maintaining detailed records of every sale, every transaction. You've always been careful to comply with the rules, to avoid drawing attention to yourself. But now, as you open the ledger and hand it over to the inspector, you can't help but wonder if today will be the day that everything changes. The inspector flips through the pages of your books, his eyes scanning the numbers with a practiced gaze. The silence between you feels suffocating. You can't read his expression, and you can't tell if he's satisfied with your records or if he's about to issue some sort of penalty. The seconds stretch into minutes, and you begin to feel the weight of his scrutiny. You've never been afraid of inspections before. You've always known that you've done everything by the book. But today, there's something different in the air. It's as if the rules are shifting, and no one knows where the line is anymore. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the inspector closes your ledger and hands it back to you without a word. His eyes linger on your goods for a moment longer, and then he nods, signaling to his fellow officers. Without another word, they move on to the next stall. You exhale a breath you didn't even realize you were holding, but the relief is short. The tension is still there, hanging in the air like a storm cloud. You continue with your day, but the unease never truly leaves you. The guards are still present, their eyes still scanning the crowd, still watching for any sign of trouble. You try to focus on your work, but every sale, every transaction feels like it's happening under a microscope. You can't escape the feeling that any moment the Sultan's men could return, and your entire livelihood could be taken from you in an instant. As the sun begins to set, the crowds in the bazaar start to thin, and you begin packing up your stall. The day has been long, and the uncertainty has worn you down. You've made some sales, but it hasn't been the usual bustling market day. The fear of inspection has cast a shadow over everything, making even the smallest transaction feel fraught with danger. As you make your way home, you can't help but reflect on the day's events. You've survived, but you can't shake the feeling that the empire is changing, that the rules of the game are no longer the same. The Sultan's men are watching more closely than ever, and it's only a matter of time before things reach a boiling point. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, but you do know this: as long as you stay sharp, stay vigilant, and stay true to your trade, you will survive. The Ottoman Empire may be changing, but you are not one to be easily defeated. The air is cooler this morning as you rise from your bed, the first streaks of sunlight peeking through the window. The city of Istanbul seems quieter today, a rare thing for a place that is always brimming with energy. The streets, once filled with the sounds of the early morning hustle and bustle, are still almost unnervingly so. There's a sense of anticipation hanging in the air, as though something is about to break the silence, and you can feel it in the pit of your stomach. It's a feeling that's been growing ever since the Sultan's men began their increased inspections of the bazaar. The unease you felt yesterday lingers, and today it feels heavier. You push the thoughts aside, focusing on the tasks ahead. A merchant's work is never done, and whether you're feeling the weight of the empire's watchful eye or not, the market calls. You can't afford to dwell on the unknown. Instead, you pull on your clothes, grab your coin pouch, and head for the warehouse. Each step feels deliberate as you make your way through the narrow streets, the quietness of the morning adding to the growing tension. There are soldiers on every corner today, as there were yesterday, their eyes scanning the crowds. The presence of authority is inescapable, and as you pass them, you can feel their watchful eyes on you, studying your every move. When you reach the warehouse, the familiar smell of spices and leather greets you. It's a comforting scent, but even now, as you inspect the goods you'll sell for the day, there's a weight on your shoulders. You check the silks, the spices, the pottery, all the items you've carefully curated for your customers, and you double-check the records. You can't afford to make a mistake, not with the increased scrutiny of the Sultan's men. Every transaction, every exchange is under the microscope, and the risk of slipping up is too great. The cart is loaded, and with a quick glance at your ledger, you head toward the Grand Bazaar. The streets are still eerily quiet as you move through the city. It feels like the calm before a storm, and you can't help but feel a sense of foreboding. You've been a merchant for many years, and you've learned how to navigate the sometimes unpredictable nature of the marketplace. But this is different. The Sultan's men are here to enforce order, to ensure that the rules are being followed, and for a man like you, that's both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, they protect the integrity of the trade, ensuring that corruption is kept in check. On the other hand, they make every sale feel like a potential trap. And no matter how careful you are, there's always the chance that a minor slip-up could lead to ruin. When you reach the bazaar, the usual sounds of the market greet you, the chatter of merchants haggling, the jingling of coins, and the constant movement of people. But there's a subtle difference today. The guards are everywhere, their stern faces scanning every interaction, every transaction. You notice that there are more soldiers today than there were yesterday. They move through the stalls, stopping at each merchant, inspecting goods, checking records, and making sure that everyone is following the rules. The feeling of being watched is stronger than ever, and it's impossible to shake the sense that your every move is being scrutinized. You set up your stall as usual, carefully arranging your silks, spices, and pottery, making sure everything is in its proper place. But even as you work, your mind is focused on the soldiers, who seem to be drawing closer with each passing minute. You wonder if today will be the day you're singled out, the day the Sultan's men decide to make an example of you. The tension is palpable. You try to focus on your work, but it's hard to concentrate when you know that your every move could be the one that attracts attention. The first customer of the day is a nobleman, his finely embroidered robe giving away his high status. He's here to look at your fine silks, and as you engage him in conversation, you can't help but notice the guards moving past your stall, their eyes scanning the exchange. You continue with the sale, discussing the intricate patterns of the silk and the origins of the material. The nobleman is pleased, and after some negotiation, you strike a deal. But even as you close the sale, there's a lingering sense of discomfort. You feel the eyes of the guards on you, and though the transaction is completed, you can't shake the feeling that you've been watched. As the day goes on, you make a few more sales, but the atmosphere is different. The usual chatter and excitement of the market are subdued, replaced by a sense of apprehension. You can hear whispers among the other merchants talk of the sultans, men, of taxes, of inspections, of bribes. Some merchants are beginning to look over their shoulders, worried that today might be the day they're caught. The air is thick with anxiety, and every transaction feels like it could be your last. Even the customers are uneasy, their voices low as they haggle over prices, as though the mere act of buying something has become a covert operation. But midway through the afternoon, one of the Sultan's men approaches your stall. You feel your heart race as he stops in front of you, his stern face unreadable. He looks over your goods with a practiced eye, inspecting your silks, your spices, your pottery, before moving on to your records. You hand him your ledger, your hands trembling slightly. The inspector flips through the pages with meticulous care, scanning every entry, every sale, every transaction. The silence between you is heavy, and all you can do is wait. Your mind races, wondering if you've made a mistake, if something will stand out in your records, something that will attract his attention. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, the inspector closes your ledger and hands it back to you. He doesn't say a word, just nods and moves on. You exhale a breath you didn't realize you were holding, but the sense of relief is fleeting. The guards continue to patrol the bazaar, their presence constant, and the tension remains thick in the air. You've survived another inspection, but it doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like a temporary reprieve. You've avoided trouble today, but you know that tomorrow could be different. The Sultan's men are relentless, and their scrutiny is only getting more intense. As the day comes to a close, you begin to pack up your stall, the weight of the day's events pressing down on you. You've made some sales, but the market feels emptier than usual. The usual excitement of closing deals, of haggling over prices, is overshadowed by the constant presence of authority. The future feels uncertain, and you wonder how long you can continue operating under these conditions. But, for now, the day is over. The city begins to quiet down, and as you make your way home, you can't help but reflect on the events of the day. The inspections, the increased presence of the guards, the constant sense of being watched. It's a new reality, one that you'll have to navigate carefully. The future of your business feels precarious, but you know that you'll keep moving forward. The marketplace is your life, and no matter the challenges, you'll continue to fight for your place within it. You arrive home, feeling the familiar weight of the day lift as you close the door behind you. The tension of the market, the unease of the inspections, fades into the background. And for the first time today, you allow yourself to relax. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new risks. But for now, you can rest. The market may be uncertain, but as long as you stay sharp, stay vigilant, and stay true to your trade, you'll survive. And that, in the world of the Ottoman Empire, is more than most can say. As dawn breaks, you awake to the familiar sounds of Istanbul coming to life around you. The distant call to prayer echoes from the minarets, the rhythmic movement of early risers hurrying through the streets, and the soft rustling of carts preparing to enter the grand bazaar. The sun's first rays bathe the city in a golden glow, but there's something different about today. The air is thick with tension, the usual buzz of energy muted, replaced with a quiet undercurrent of unease. It's been days now since the Sultan's men started their increased presence, and the weight of their scrutiny hasn't lessened. It's harder to ignore the feeling that the empire, once so grand and sure of itself, is shifting beneath your feet. You rise, your mind already on the day ahead. Each day in the marketplace is the same: preparing your goods, setting up your stall, negotiating with buyers. But today, that certainty feels distant. The risks are more pronounced. The Sultan's men are everywhere, their eyes constantly watching, making sure that every merchant abides by the ever-changing rules. You wonder how much longer you can keep navigating these murky waters, trying to stay just under the radar. One wrong step, one misjudgment, and you could lose it all. You go through your morning routine, washing your face with cool water, eating a simple breakfast of olives and bread, and mentally preparing yourself for the day ahead. The familiar ritual of preparing goods for the bazaar gives you a sense of normalcy, even though the world around you feels anything but. You've been through countless inspections, countless negotiations, but this new atmosphere of heightened scrutiny is beginning to wear on you. Each transaction, every customer, feels like it could be your last. You know that the stakes are higher now, but it doesn't change the fact that the work must go on. As you step outside, the cool morning air greets you, but it doesn't feel as refreshing today. The streets are busy, as always, but the usual energy feels strained. You notice more soldiers than you've ever seen before, standing at every corner, watching, scanning. There's no doubt that the authorities have a firm grip on the city's pulse, and today it feels as though their watchful eyes are directed squarely at you. The weight of the imperial gaze feels heavier with each step you take. You make your way toward the warehouse where your goods are stored. The journey is short, but today it feels longer. Every corner you turn, every alleyway you pass, seems filled with an undercurrent of tension. The merchants around you are moving more slowly than usual, some with their heads down, others with nervous glances, as if they're afraid to make eye contact. The Sultan's men have managed to stir up fear in the very bones of the market. The power they wield is obvious, and for merchants like you, it's both a blessing and a curse. While the Sultan's men can ensure fairness in trade, their actions also threaten to stifle your livelihood. They are a constant reminder that in the world of commerce, survival is never guaranteed. Once you arrive at the warehouse, the familiar scent of spices and leather fills your nostrils. There's comfort in the routine of preparing your goods for the day's trade. You inspect your stock carefully, ensuring everything is in order. The silks are stacked neatly, the spices are wrapped tightly, and the pottery is polished to perfection. You've always prided yourself on the quality of your goods, but today, you feel a greater urgency to ensure that nothing is amiss. Every detail matters more than ever, and you know that your reputation, once so carefully built, could slip away in an instant if you make a mistake. The cart is loaded, and you take a final glance at the ledger. Your transactions are in order, but the lingering fear of inspection is never far from your mind. The Sultan's men are relentless, and their increased presence in the market leaves little room for error. But there's nothing more you can do but proceed as usual. You can't afford to let the threat of inspection paralyze you. As you make your way toward the Grand Bazaar, the streets are bustling with the usual energy, but it's all tinged with a sense of unease. The soldiers are everywhere, standing watch over the market's entrances, moving through the aisles, inspecting goods, asking questions. The market feels different today. The usual vibrancy is muted, replaced by a quiet nervousness that hangs in the air. It's hard to ignore the oppressive presence of the guards. Even the most experienced merchants, the ones who've seen it all, are moving cautiously, their eyes darting around as though expecting something to happen at any moment. You set up your stall, arranging your goods with meticulous care, but the usual excitement is absent. The rhythm of the marketplace feels off, as though everyone is holding their breath. Buyers walk by with wary eyes, their conversations quieter than usual. Some stop at your stall, but even as they inspect your goods, there's a sense of hesitation in their movements. You can see it in their eyes. They're aware of the increased presence of the authorities. The sense of freedom that used to come with the marketplace has been replaced by the weight of constant surveillance. As the day wears on, the tension in the air grows thicker. The guards move through the market in a predictable pattern, stopping at each stall, inspecting goods, questioning merchants. You do your best to keep your composure, but it's difficult. You can feel the eyes of the guards on you, watching your every move, analyzing your every transaction. It's as though you're walking on a tightrope, always aware that one wrong step could lead to disaster. The marketplace, once a place of opportunity, has become a game of survival. You try to engage with your customers as usual, but the undercurrent of fear is impossible to ignore. Each sale, each transaction feels like a gamble. The stakes are higher than ever, and the risks are greater. You can see it in the faces of your fellow merchants. Some are trying to act like everything is normal, while others are clearly worried, their eyes constantly shifting toward the guards. By mid-afternoon, the tension has reached its peak. The Sultan's men have been making their rounds all day, and it's clear that they are looking for someone. You begin to hear whispers among the merchants about a new wave of inspections scheduled for the coming days. Some are talking about bribing officials to avoid trouble, while others are considering closing their stalls altogether, fearing that the crackdown is just beginning. You're not sure where you stand in all of this. You've always kept your business honest, never straying from the rules, but the constant presence of the guards is making it harder to feel secure. The market is no longer the place of freedom it once was. It has become a place of tension, of uncertainty, where the authorities loom large, and the price of failure is high. As the sun begins to set and the market starts to quiet down, you close your stall and begin packing up for the day. The day has been long, and the strain of constant vigilance has worn you down. You've made some sales, but the satisfaction of a successful day is overshadowed by the uncertainty of the future. You can't help but wonder how much longer you can continue operating under these conditions. The Sultan's men are only becoming more aggressive in their inspections, and it's clear that things are changing. The world you once knew is shifting, and for the first time in a long time, you wonder what the future holds. As you make your way home, the weight of the day presses heavily on your shoulders. You know that tomorrow will bring more challenges, more uncertainty, but there's nothing you can do but continue on. You've built your life on the foundation of the marketplace, and despite the dangers, you'll keep moving forward. The future may be uncertain, but as long as you stay sharp and stay vigilant, you know you'll survive. For now, that's all you can do. The morning comes once again, but today the city feels different. The streets are quieter, as though the entire city of Istanbul is holding its breath. You feel it too. There's an unease in the air, something that's been building for days. The Sultan's men are becoming more intrusive. Their presence is felt in every corner of the market, and the whispers about the new government crackdown only intensify the pressure you feel on your shoulders. But the work of a merchant never stops, and there's no time for fear or hesitation. The market calls, and, as always, you answer. You start your day in the usual way. The sun's light creeps through the window, warming the cool morning air. The call to prayer reverberates through the city, as it does every morning, marking the beginning of another day. You wash your face, prepare a simple breakfast, and check the goods you plan to sell today. There's a small comfort in the routine, the predictability of the task before you. But even as you arrange your silks, spices, and pottery, the growing tension in the air is impossible to ignore. The presence of soldiers on every street corner, the constant surveillance of your every move, it all hangs like a weight on your chest as you make your way toward the warehouse. The usual energy of the city feels subdued. The people on the streets walk with a quiet urgency, their eyes darting from side to side. You can sense that they, too, feel the shift that's happening. There's something different in the air, and it's not just the Sultan's increased inspections or the heavy-handed presence of his men. It's a sense of uncertainty, a fear that something is coming, something larger than the marketplace and the daily struggles of commerce. You arrive at the warehouse, your feet dragging with each step, feeling the weight of the day's uncertainty. The door creaks open, and you step inside, immediately greeted by the familiar smell of spices and oils. The scent is comforting, but today it feels out of place. The usual hum of activity in the warehouse, as merchants move goods, organize their inventory, and prepare for the day ahead, seems muffled. You check your stock, making sure everything is ready for the day's trade. But even this routine task feels burdened with the knowledge that today might not be a typical day. The Sultan's men have made it clear they're watching, and today, you can't help but feel that they might be watching you just a little too closely. Once your cart is loaded, you head toward the Grand Bazaar. The streets are quieter than usual, the usual bustle of activities subdued. You notice the soldiers again, their eyes scanning every passerby, every merchant, every movement. Their presence is palpable, as though the whole city is now under their watchful eye. The fear, the anxiety, it's all starting to build inside you. It's one thing to be a merchant in the Ottoman Empire, but it's another to live in fear of what might happen if the wrong person sees you, the wrong person reports you. It's a dangerous game to play, and it's one you've been navigating for years. But today, it feels different. The market isn't what it used to be. Arriving at the Grand Bazaar, you immediately feel the shift. The market is still bustling with activity, but there's a different energy today. It's as if everyone knows that the Sultan's men could arrive at any moment, inspecting every stall, questioning every transaction. The usual chatter between buyers and sellers is replaced by nervous glances, quick words exchanged behind closed curtains. The guards are moving through the market in force, more of them than ever before. Their eyes are sharp, and they're not hiding the fact that they're here to keep everyone in check. You set up your stall, trying to maintain the same calm demeanor. That's gotten you through every other day in the market. You arrange your silks, pottery, and spices in their usual places, making sure everything is presentable. But even as you go through the motions, you feel the weight of the Sultan's gaze on you. The inspectors have been growing more frequent, and each passing day brings more uncertainty. You wonder if today will be the day your stall is inspected, if today will be the day you're caught in the crackdown. Your first customer is a well-dressed nobleman, his robe indicating his high status. He's here for the silks you've been selling, and you greet him with the professionalism that's expected of you. The exchange is smooth, as always. He's familiar with your work, and you've built a reputation for providing high-quality goods. After some negotiation, you strike a deal, but as you close the transaction, you can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. You notice a guard standing just a few stalls down, his eyes fixed on you. You've been watched before, of course, but today feels different. There's a sense of unease in the air, a quiet threat lurking just beneath the surface. You continue with your work, moving through the day with a mix of routine and caution. The guards continue their rounds, moving through the market with an air of authority. You try to focus on the task at hand, but the thought of the Sultan's men and their increasing scrutiny keeps pulling at your attention. Every transaction feels like a potential trap, and you can't help but feel that at any moment, someone could decide that you've crossed the line, that something about your stall, your goods, your transactions doesn't align with the empire's expectations. The fear of inspection, of losing everything you've worked for, is enough to make your hands tremble as you handle each piece of merchandise. The day wears on, and the pressure begins to take its toll. The usual rush of buyers has slowed, and you notice that more and more merchants are beginning to look over their shoulders, speaking in whispers as they adjust their goods. Even the usual laughter and friendly banter between buyers and sellers feels forced, as though everyone is aware that the empire is watching, always watching. The guards are making more stops today than they usually do, inspecting goods more thoroughly, questioning merchants more aggressively. It's as if the Sultan's men are on a mission to root out any sign of dishonesty, to ensure that no one is evading taxes, no one is playing the system. At midday, you overhear a conversation between two other merchants. One speaks of how he narrowly avoided a penalty the day before, when an inspector found a discrepancy in his records. The other talks about how he's considering closing his stall for a few days, fearing that he'll be next. The fear is contagious, and you can't help but wonder if your name is on some list somewhere. If you're under suspicion, just waiting to be called out. The rest of the day passes in a blur. Every sale, every transaction feels fraught with danger. The guards move from stall to stall, their scrutiny growing sharper with each passing hour. By the time the sun begins to set, you're ready to close your stall and head home. The market is quieter now, the bustling energy of earlier replaced by a palpable sense of relief as the day comes to a close. You gather your goods, packing them into your cart, but even as you do, you can't shake the feeling that the peace is temporary. The Sultan's men may be gone for now, but the fear of their return lingers. As you make your way home, you reflect on the day. The tension in the market was unlike anything you've ever experienced before. The guards, the inspections, the whispers of corruption, it's all starting to change the way you view the empire, the marketplace, and your role within it. You've always known that nothing in life is certain, but today, the uncertainty feels larger than ever. Tomorrow will come with its own challenges, its own risks, and once again, you'll navigate the market the best you can. But the shadow of the Sultan's watchful eye will never be far behind. The first rays of sunlight filter through your window, casting a soft glow across your room. The familiar sounds of Istanbul stir the city to life, the distant call to prayer from the minarets, the soft murmur of voices, the clop of horse hooves. On cobblestone streets, it's the same routine, the same beginning to the day, but today it feels different. There's an almost palpable tension in the air. You can feel it in your bones, a quiet unease that clings to the morning like a thick fog. The market, the place where you've built your life, has changed. The Sultan's men have made their presence known, and it's only a matter of time before something shifts permanently. You rise from your bed, the weight of yesterday's events still heavy on your mind. Every transaction, every exchange feels scrutinized now. The once simple act of setting up your stall feels laden with potential danger. As a merchant, you've always thrived on the unpredictability of the trade. But this new reality, the constant inspections, the increased taxes, the ever-watchful eye of the empire has created an atmosphere that feels as suffocating as it is uncertain. You wonder, for the first time, how long you can continue to live like this, always on edge, always waiting for the next shoe to drop. But you've been here before. Life as a merchant in the Ottoman Empire is never straightforward. It's about adapting, adjusting, and surviving in a world that constantly changes. The empires rise and fall, but the market is a constant. It's your lifeblood, and while the risks may be greater now, it's all you know. So, you push your fears aside, and focus on the task at hand, preparing for another day of trade. Your morning routine begins as it always does, washing your face with cool water, grabbing a piece of bread and olives for breakfast, and double-checking your stock. The familiar ritual grounds you, if only for a moment. You check your silks, the pottery, the spices, making sure everything is ready for the day. But there's a weight in your chest that won't go away. Every item you touch, every piece you arrange, feels like it's under the microscope. The Sultan's men are out there, their presence growing stronger with each passing day, and you can't help but wonder when your stall will be next. The streets outside are quieter than usual. The city of Istanbul is bustling, as always, but the usual energy feels more restrained. The soldiers on every corner, the presence of authority, these are things you've grown used to over the past weeks. But today they feel more intrusive than ever. The city is holding its breath, and so are you. Every step toward the market feels heavier, as if you're walking into a storm that you can't quite see but know is coming. As you approach your warehouse, you pass a few fellow merchants there, eyes averted, their expressions tense. They too feel the pressure. There's an air of uncertainty in the city now, and it's impossible to ignore. The usual camaraderie between traders is gone, replaced by whispered conversations and furtive glances. Everyone is wondering the same thing. Who will be next? Who will be the one to draw the attention of the Sultan's men and suffer the consequences? When you reach the warehouse, you take a deep breath before entering. Inside, the air smells of spices, leather, and dried goods, and it's here that you find some semblance of peace in the midst of the growing chaos. Your goods are stacked neatly, the silks folded carefully, the spices wrapped and ready for trade. The familiar sight comforts you for a moment, but even here, in the quiet, the tension still hangs in the air. Every movement feels deliberate. Every action is weighed against the growing uncertainty outside. You load your cart, making sure that every item is secure, every detail accounted for. There's no room for error. When you step outside, the familiar streets of Istanbul greet you, but they feel unfamiliar today. The soldiers on the corners seem to be everywhere. You notice that they're not just standing idly by there, actively watching, stopping merchants, questioning them, making sure they have their papers in order. You can feel their eyes on you as you pass, like a silent reminder that the empire's reach extends far beyond the marketplace. You make your way toward the Grand Bazaar, and with each step, the weight on your chest grows heavier. You can feel the change in the air, a shift in the marketplace that no one can ignore. The market is usually a place of energy, of noise and activity, where merchants haggle and customers bargain. But today, the chatter seems subdued, the haggling more forced. The usual bustle is missing. The guards, the inspectors there, everywhere. Their presence casts a long shadow over every transaction, every exchange. When you finally arrive at the bazaar, it's as if the air has thickened, weighed down by the presence of the Sultan's men. You notice that the usual vendors, the ones who are usually the loudest and most confident, are quiet today. The energy that once filled the market is replaced with a nervous tension that's almost palpable. Even the usual buyers seem hesitant, as if they're waiting for something to happen. The sound of coins clinking, once a pleasant background to the market's rhythm, now feels like an ominous reminder of the stakes. You set up your stall as usual, arranging your silks, spices, and pottery. You go through the motions around your goods, making sure everything looks perfect, but the weight of the situation presses down on you. You're keenly aware of the soldiers moving through the market, their eyes scanning the faces of merchants, inspecting goods, checking records. You've seen them before, of course, but today there's a sharper edge to their presence. They're not just looking, they're watching, waiting for any sign of trouble. Your first customer of the day is a well-dressed man, a nobleman by his robes. He's here for the silks, and you begin the familiar dance of negotiation. The words come easily, and the deal is struck with little resistance, but you can't shake the feeling that you're being watched. The guards are moving closer now, pausing at the neighboring stalls, their eyes flicking over every transaction. You finish the sale, But even as you thank the nobleman and take his coin, you can't help but feel that the transaction has become a spectacle. It's no longer just about the goods. It's about compliance, about proving that you belong in this marketplace. Under the watchful eyes of the empire, throughout the morning, the unease grows. The market is quieter than usual, with more and more merchants opting to close early or scale back on their offerings. The whispers are louder now, rumors circulating about the Sultan's plans to increase taxes, to crack down on corruption, to root out any merchants who may be evading the law. Everyone is looking over their shoulder, waiting for the authorities to make their move. Even the most seasoned traders seem shaken, their usual bravado gone. The afternoon stretches on, and the tension in the air feels unbearable. You continue to make sales, but every transaction feels like it's under a microscope. The Sultan's men are making their rounds, moving from stall to stall, inspecting goods, checking records, questioning merchants. The questions are always the same. Are your taxes paid? Are your goods properly documented? Have you declared everything? Finally, as the sun begins to set and the market starts to quiet down, you pack up your stall, feeling the weight of the day's uncertainty settling over you. The usual feeling of accomplishment after a successful day in the market is absent. Instead, there's a lingering sense of unease, a feeling that today was just a preview of something bigger, something that's coming whether you're ready for it or not. You make your way home, each step feeling heavier than the last. The guards' watchful eyes follow you, their presence a constant reminder that nothing is certain. The future of the marketplace, of your livelihood, is in flux. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, but you know that things are changing. The empire is shifting, and the rules are no longer what they used to be. The only thing you can do now is wait and adapt, just as you always have. The day breaks once again, bringing with it the familiar rhythm of Istanbul's morning routine. But today, there's something different in the air. The city seems to move a little slower, as though everyone is waiting for something to shift, a change, something that might shake the foundations of the market. The usual bustle of the streets feels subdued, and you can't help but sense the rising tension that has become part of daily life in the empire. The Sultan's men are everywhere, their presence impossible to ignore, and the uncertainty of what the future holds hangs over you like a storm cloud. You rise from bed, the first light of day illuminating the familiar surroundings of your home. The cool breeze flows through the window, but it's hard to ignore the heaviness in the air. The usual quiet calm of the morning is now filled with a sense of anticipation. The market beckons, as it always does, but this time you're more aware of the stakes than ever. The Sultan's men are closing in, their inspections growing more frequent, and the fear of what might happen next has begun to take root in your heart as you prepare for the day. You can't shake the nagging feeling that something is coming. The routine of washing your face, having a quick breakfast, and preparing your goods for the market feels almost mechanical now. You go through the motions, but in the back of your mind, you're acutely aware of the growing pressure. You've always relied on the marketplace as your lifeblood, but now it feels as if the very foundation of that world is beginning to crack. You can't help but wonder, how much longer can you continue to trade under the Sultan's watchful eye? You gather your things, making sure your cart is stocked with the goods that you know will sell today. The silks, the spices, the pottery, these are your bread and butter, your reputation, your livelihood. You've built your business from the ground up, and it's not easy to see it all hanging in the balance. With each load you place into the cart, You feel the weight of the day's uncertainty settle deeper into your bones. Each item you handle feels heavier, as though it's not just merchandise, it's part of something larger, something more fragile than it once was. As you step outside, the familiar streets of Istanbul greet you, but they feel different today. The hustle and bustle are still present, but there's an underlying quietness in the air, a sense that everyone is waiting for something. You notice more soldiers on the corners, more patrols walking down the narrow streets. Their presence is more noticeable today, and you can feel their eyes on you as you move through the city. The market is no longer a place where merchants and customers can interact freely. It's a place where every transaction, every word, every gesture is scrutinized. You arrive at your warehouse, and even the air inside feels different. The usual scents of spices and leather are familiar, but today they seem distant, as if the very air has shifted in response to the growing tension. The goods you've been preparing for the day are still neatly stacked, but you can't help but wonder if it will all be for nothing. Will today be the day the Sultan's men come for you? Will they find something in your records, something in your transactions that will lead them to shut you down? The questions swirl in your mind as you finish preparing your cart, each motion more deliberate than the last. When you finally make your way toward the Grand Bazaar, the streets feel heavier. There's a sense of quiet expectation in the air, like everyone knows something is about to happen, but no one knows what. As you pass by other merchants, you notice the tension in their faces, the quick glances they exchange with one another. The usual camaraderie is gone, replaced by nervous energy, whispers of the new taxes, and concerns about the Sultan's increasing scrutiny. You've been a part of this world for years, but today it feels like you're a stranger in a place you once knew intimately. Arriving at the Grand Bazaar, you immediately notice the difference. The usual hustle of the market feels muted, the chatter quieter, the deals less animated. The market, once alive with the sounds of negotiations, haggling, and bartering, now feels like a place where everyone is on edge. The guards are everywhere, their presence constant and oppressive. They move through the aisles, their eyes scanning every merchant, every buyer, every exchange. It's clear that they're here to enforce the Sultan's laws, to root out any corruption, any rule breakers, and make an example of them. The fear in the air is palpable, and you can feel it in your chest. Tight and suffocating. You set up your stall, but even as you arrange your goods, your mind is elsewhere. You can't help but notice the increase in the number of guards there, eyes moving over the marketplace with a practiced, almost surgical precision. The silence between you and your customers feels heavier, like everyone is aware of the presence of authority. Transactions feel more like obligations, the weight of them heavier with each passing moment. There's no longer the same free exchange of goods. It's as though every item has become suspect. Every transaction carries with it the risk of exposure. Your first customer arrives. A man dressed in fine robes, his eyes immediately drawn to the silks on your table. You greet him, and for a moment, it feels like the market is normal again. The usual dance of negotiation begins, the back and forth over price, the careful discussion of quality and origin. It feels like business as usual, and for a moment, you breathe a sigh of relief. But even as you make the sale, you can't shake the feeling that you're being watched. The guards are nearby, their eyes lingering on you as if waiting for you to slip up, to do something wrong. You finish the transaction, take the nobleman's coin, but you can't help but feel unsettled. It's as though you're being marked, each transaction a potential point of failure, a risk that could cost you everything. As the day wears on, the unease only grows. The guards continue to patrol, their steps echoing through the bazaar, their presence a constant reminder of the empire's reach. Merchants huddle in quiet conversations, exchanging whispered fears about the latest inspection, about the growing pressure to pay higher taxes, about the increasing risks of doing business under the Sultan's watch. The usual liveliness of the market has been replaced with a palpable sense of dread. You've seen the market this way before, during times of political unrest or economic downturn, but this feels different. It feels like the end of an era, the beginning of something that could change everything. By late afternoon, the market begins to quiet down. The usual energy that fills the bazaar is gone, replaced with the slow hum of closing stalls and merchants packing up for the day. You begin to pack your goods, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on you. The sales you made today were good, but the fear that lingers in the air has taken a toll. You can't help but wonder how long this atmosphere can last, how long you can continue operating under such scrutiny. As you make your way home, you reflect on the day's events. The market was quieter than usual, the guards more present than ever. You've made it through another day, but you know that the future remains uncertain. The empire is changing, and with it, the world you've known as a merchant is changing, too. The risks are higher now, the stakes greater. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but for now, you've survived. You've made your sales, kept your reputation intact, and lived to trade another day. But the question remains, how long will this last? And when the empire's grip tightens even further, will you still be able to survive? The early morning light filters softly through your window, casting a gentle glow over the room. For a brief moment, everything feels still, as if the city itself is holding its breath. But it doesn't last long. The usual sounds of Istanbul's streets slowly start to pick up the distant clatter of carts, the murmur of merchants haggling, the call to prayer ringing from the minute. The marketplace is waking up, and so must you. But today, the weight of uncertainty lingers even heavier than before. You rise, stretching your tired limbs, feeling the familiar ache of another long day ahead. The fear, the tension, has become a constant companion. For the last few weeks, the presence of the Sultan's men in the market has grown undeniable. Every corner you turn, every transaction you make, feels like it's under the watchful eye of authority. The risk of being caught in the crackdown is ever present, and you can't shake the feeling that you're being watched. The marketplace, once a place of opportunity and freedom, now feels more like a battleground. But today, like every other day, you must go on. You've built your life on this trade, and there's no backing down now. You wash your face, take a small breakfast, and gather the goods you'll need for the day. The silks, the spices, the pottery. Each item is carefully selected, arranged, and packed onto your cart. Every piece must be perfect. You've worked too hard to let fear dictate your business. Still, there's a sense of heaviness in your chest, a tightness that won't go away. The empire is shifting, and you're not sure where you fit in this new world. You step outside, the cool morning air greeting you as you make your way through the narrow streets toward the warehouse. The streets are busier today, the usual hum of activity louder than usual. But there's a subtle tension beneath the surface. The soldiers are still present, standing at every corner, scanning the crowds with watchful eyes. You've grown accustomed to their presence, but today it feels more oppressive than ever. The city is on edge, and it's not hard to understand why. The Sultan's men are becoming more active, conducting inspections more frequently, and the rumors of tax increases and government crackdowns only add to the unease. When you reach the warehouse, the familiar scents of dried spices and fresh leather fill your nostrils, offering a small sense of comfort in the midst of the growing tension. But even here, within the confines of your small space, you can't escape the weight of the situation. You inspect your goods carefully, as you always do, making sure everything is in order. The silks are carefully folded, the spices neatly wrapped, the pottery placed with care. Everything must be perfect. But even as you go through the motions, the weight of the empire's watchful eye lingers. You load your cart with the day's goods, double-checking the ledger to make sure everything is accounted for. As you make your way toward the Grand Bazaar, you feel the weight of each step. The market, the place that's always been your lifeblood, feels more like a battlefield now. Every corner, every transaction feels laden with danger. You wonder how much longer you can keep up the charade. How much longer can you navigate this maze of risks, all while trying to keep your business afloat? When you arrive at the Grand Bazaar, the usual sights greet you. The vendors setting up their stalls, the scent of fresh bread and spices in the air, the bustle of the market coming to life. But there's something different today. The energy feels off, quieter than usual. The usual chatter, the haggling, the laughter, it all seems a little more forced, as if everyone is waiting for something. The Sultan's men are still here, moving through the market with purpose. Their presence is inescapable. You set up your stall, arranging your goods as usual, but there's an edge to your movements today. Everything feels sharper, more deliberate. You notice the guards watching, moving through the bazaar in pairs, their eyes scanning the merchants, the buyers, the transactions. They stop at each stall, inspecting goods, questioning merchants, checking records. It's the same routine, but today it feels more like an interrogation. Every time a guard stops by, you can feel the tension in the air. Your heart skips a beat, and you try to remain calm, to continue as if nothing is different. But the eyes of the empire are everywhere. They're watching, waiting for any sign of trouble. Your first customer is a nobleman, dressed in fine silks and adorned with gold. He's here for your silks, and you engage in the usual exchange, talking about the quality, the origins, the design. The negotiation is smooth, as always, but there's something in the air that makes everything feel different. The Sultan's men are still moving through the market, and you can feel their eyes on you as you make the sale. You close the deal, take the coin, and smile, but inside, your thoughts race. The transaction is done, but the feeling of being watched lingers. As the day progresses, the market feels more subdued. The usual energy is missing, replaced by a quiet sense of unease. The merchants are huddled in small groups, whispering to one another, exchanging rumors of the latest government decree, of the new taxes being levied on the trade, of the Sultan's plans to increase inspections. You've heard it all before, but today it feels different. The presence of the guards, the increased scrutiny, it's starting to take its toll. Every sale, every transaction feels like it's being evaluated. Each moment feels like a risk. By midday, the market is quieter than usual. The usual crowd of buyers has thinned, and you notice that many of the stalls around you are closing early. Some merchants are packing up, leaving the market for the day, avoiding the risk of an inspection. The usual camaraderie between traders has dissipated, replaced by nervous glances and whispered conversations. You can see the fear in their eyes, fear of being targeted, of losing their goods, their livelihood. Everyone knows that it's only a matter of time before the government cracks down harder. The question is, who will be next? As you continue with your sales, you feel the weight of the Sultan's watchful eye more acutely. The guards are moving through the bazaar, stopping at more and more stalls, inspecting goods, checking records. It feels like they're targeting the smaller merchants now, the ones who are more vulnerable, the ones who don't have the same power or influence as the bigger traders. You wonder if you'll be next. If today will be the day you're caught in the crackdown. The day drags on and the pressure mounts. Every customer feels like a potential threat. Every transaction feels like it could be your last. You can feel the eyes of the guards on you, scanning, watching, waiting for any slip up. Your hands tremble slightly as you handle the goods, and you find it harder to focus on the trade. The market no longer feels like a place of opportunity. It feels like a place of danger, of uncertainty. As the sun begins to set and the market starts to quiet down, you pack up your stall, feeling the weight of the day's uncertainty on your shoulders. The usual satisfaction of a day's work well done is missing. You've made some sales, but the fear that lingered in the air all day has taken its toll. You wonder what tomorrow will bring, and whether you'll still have a stall in the bazaar when the sun rises again. You make your way home, the familiar streets now feeling foreign, the weight of the day pressing down on you. The future feels uncertain, and a shadow of the Sultan's men lingers over everything. The marketplace you've known for so long is changing, and you're not sure where you fit in this new world. But you've made it through today, and tomorrow, like every other day, you'll face whatever challenges come your way, just as you always have. The cool morning air greets you as you step out into the streets of Istanbul. The sun has barely risen, but already you can feel the rhythm of the city starting to build. The sounds of carts moving, the soft murmur of the vendors preparing their goods, and the faint echo of the call to prayer fill the air. Yet there's something different about today. The streets are quieter than usual, the people moving with more purpose, their steps quicker, more hurried. As you move through the narrow alleys toward your warehouse, the familiar feeling of unease that has followed you over the past weeks lingers, thicker now than before. You've learned to navigate the labyrinth of Istanbul's markets for years, but the events of the past days, the increasing presence of the Sultan's men, the frequent inspections, the rumors of tax hikes have left you feeling more vulnerable than ever. Today, the city feels like it's on the brink of something, a tipping point you can't yet define, but know it's coming. You wonder if the day's trade will be another normal transaction, or if today will be the day the crackdown finally reaches you. Arriving at the warehouse, the familiar scents of leather, spices, and silks fill the air, but they bring you no comfort today. Every item you handle feels like it's weighed down with more than just its physical presence. Each silk, fold, each jar of spices, each piece of pottery feels scrutinized, as though even your inventory is being judged by the Sultan's unseen gaze. Your hands move through the motions, preparing your cart, checking the inventory, ensuring everything is ready. But the ritual of preparing your goods for the marketplace no longer feels like a simple task. It's fraught with the fear that any minor misstep could lead to a loss that you may not recover from. The streets seem unusually still as you load the cart and set out toward the Grand Bazaar. You pass by several familiar faces, their expressions drawn tight, eyes scanning their surroundings. The city feels different today, not in a way you can easily describe, but you can feel it in the air. the usual confidence of the merchants has been replaced by a wariness that permeates every street, every stall. Everyone is looking over their shoulder, waiting for the inevitable disruption to come. It's clear that the atmosphere of the market has changed, and not for the better. When you finally arrive at the Grand Bazaar, you are met with the usual chaos. Merchants haggling, the scent of spices wafting through the air, the colorful fabrics on display, the sounds of business being done. But today, it's all quieter, more subdued. The usual exuberance of the market has been replaced by an undercurrent of fear. You notice the Sultan's men moving through the crowd, their eyes scanning each merchant, every stall, as though they're hunting for something, anything that might be amiss. You can feel their gaze on you as you set up your stall, carefully arranging your goods with the precision that's become second nature. But even as you set up, you can't shake the feeling that this time is different. The guards are everywhere. Today, it's not just the usual patrols. Today, it feels like they're watching for something. Perhaps it's just the weight of the atmosphere, or perhaps it's the way the inspectors are moving through the stalls with greater urgency. They stop more often now, questioning merchants, checking records, inspecting goods. The market that once felt like a place of commerce now feels like a place of surveillance, a place where every transaction could be the one that leads to an unwelcome visit from the Sultan's men. As the morning wears on, the sense of tension only grows. You begin to notice how the usual exchanges have slowed. The conversations between buyers and sellers are more curt, the usual banter more forced. Even the haggling, the lifeblood of the bazaar, feels less enthusiastic. Buyers and sellers are more careful with their words, more cautious with their movements. You can see it in their faces, the unspoken fear that grips everyone in the market, and you can't escape it either. The Sultan's men are watching, and there's nowhere to hide. Your first sale of the day comes from a merchant seeking silks, a regular customer of yours. He's pleased with the quality of your goods, and after some negotiation, the deal is struck. But even as you exchange the goods for coin, you can feel the weight of the guards' watchful eyes on you. The inspection process seems to have grown, more invasive today, as though each merchant is under a microscope. Every movement, every sale is watched, scrutinized. You wonder how much longer you can keep this up. What happens when the Sultan's men decide that you're the next one to be investigated? What happens when your business, your reputation, is no longer enough to protect you? You try to shake off the feeling, to focus on the transactions in front of you, but the fear is impossible to ignore. The guards continue to patrol the bazaar, their presence a constant reminder of the empire's tightening grip. You overhear several conversations among your fellow merchants, whispers of higher taxes, of the Sultan's men cracking down on those who aren't paying their fair share, of bribes being exchanged to avoid trouble. You can feel the weight of those rumors bearing down on the marketplace. Merchants who once walked with pride now move more cautiously, their eyes darting toward the guards as they make their way through the market. Even the once bustling and lively exchanges between buyers and sellers are now tinged with fear. The market, once a vibrant hub of commerce, has become a place of tension and uncertainty. By midday, the atmosphere in the bazaar is unbearable. The guards are inspecting more stalls, their presence more pronounced, their eyes more piercing. The usual hum of activity has slowed to a dull murmur, as though the market has become a place of waiting. Waiting for what? For the inspectors to arrive, for the Sultan's men to make their move. You can't help but wonder if your time is coming, if today will be the day that the empire's reach finally finds you. The Sultan's men are inspecting records now, not just goods. They're questioning transactions, asking for proof of taxes paid, checking every ledger. And you wonder, for the first time, if you've made a mistake. If you've missed something in your records, something that might make you an easy target. Your nerves are frayed by the time the Sultan's men approach your stall. The moment feels inevitable, and you brace yourself for the inspection. One of the guards stops in front of you, his face expressionless. He asks to see your goods, your records, your books. You hand them over, your hands shaking slightly. The guard inspects everything carefully, flipping through the pages of your ledger, checking the details of each transaction. You try to keep calm, but it's impossible to ignore the heavy silence between you. Every second feels like a test, a moment where your fate could be sealed with a single mistake. After what feels like an eternity, the guard closes your ledger, hands it back to you, and nods. He moves on to the next stall, leaving you standing there, your breath held in your chest. You exhale slowly, but the relief is short-lived. The fear, the uncertainty, the tension, they remain. Today, you've survived. But tomorrow is another day, another chance for the Empire to reach its hand into your business, to change the rules once again. You pack up your stall as the sun begins to set, the usual satisfaction of a day's work, well done, replaced by the weight of the uncertainty that hangs in the air. As you make your way home, the familiar streets of Istanbul feel foreign, as though you're walking in a world that's slowly slipping out of your control. You've survived today, but the future remains uncertain. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, but one thing is clear: nothing will ever be the same again. The Empire is changing, and with it, the marketplace you've known for so long. The rules are shifting, the stakes are higher, and you wonder how long you can keep navigating this new world before the walls finally close in.